4-2. What happens if he hits? If a zombie, which this is, we say
Should
pull
have
that
had
down
a
to 3
4.
player.
Should have had a 4.
Why didn't you do it?
G'day all, JP, Top Deck Commander, back again. Now, I did say last time I was going to do an deck tech, but since then I've had a thought, because it's my mate Chad's deck, that we might actually create a series of interviewing deck builders, see where their mind's at, why they put cards in, why they didn't, all that sort of thing. Unfortunately, Chad's off doing something with the army, so just going to pop this video out now. It's one of my favourites, Roon of the Hidden Realms. You just flicker stuff. Smash those ETB triggers. It's a very proactive deck. As a player, I do like having lots of little dials and knobs to turn, just to have a level of control. It's not a control deck or anything like that, but I certainly do have an ability to be more proactive than reactive with the deck. So we will get to Urtet, that'll be next month, but right here and now, we're going to get into Roon. Love this deck, one of my favourites, one of my first decks ever built, and played it only a couple of months ago. It's so much fun to play. So let's get straight into it. First up, of course, the ramp package. I've got the 4 signets in here. Sounds like some 60s swinging band. Azorius, Selesnya, Simic, and Arcane Signet. Selesnya or Selesnya? I'd never know how to pronounce that one. These are all mana rocks because I do have a teleportation circle and a displacer kitten, so I can actually bounce the rocks and get the mana. You reuse the mana or have it for another turn. Next set of rocks. Soul Ring, Thought Vessel. Those two are obvious. Soul Ring's because it's, well, great. Thought Vessel, just in case I'm holding on to cards to bounce. Commander Sphere, also in there just to have an emergency card draw. And Patriarch Seal. This is a new one. Came out with Battle of Baldur's Gate, I reckon. Taps for 1 mana of any colour. That's awesome. But also 1 and tap, and I can untap a target legendary creature I control. Remembering, Roon, of course, is legendary. I've got a couple of emergency backup commanders in there that are also legendary, so he can do some good work. The important thing to remember with Roon is he can also bounce other people's creatures. So I could use him twice just in defence. Or if someone comes at me with a load of 1/1 counters on him, yeah, no worries. I'll bounce him and bring him back to base numbers. After that, we've got Wood Elves. When it ETBs, find a forest, slap it onto the battlefield. Not tapped, that's all good. White Plume Adventurer. Enters a battlefield, you take the initiative. This is the one with the underworld. So the first one is find a basic land card, chuck it on the battlefield. And there's other bonuses, but that's the one he's in for. Plus, once you complete a dungeon, he untaps all creatures at the beginning of everybody's turn. So that's all very good. All of a sudden, my Roon's being untapped every turn. I can react to other people's moves, other people's turns. It's all good. Peregrine Drake is also in there. Imagine just bouncing this. You spend 2 mana, bounce him, he untaps 5 lands. So he's kind of in the ramp package as ramp, because he's going to work really well. Should be maybe in the cheese package later on, but I've put him as ramp because that's why he's in there. And finally, I've got a couple of big guns here for the ramp. Mirari's Wake. It's going to buff all my creatures by +1/+1. And whenever I tap a land for mana, I add 1 mana. That's awesome. That's just going to double my mana. And Kadama of the East Tree. Whenever another permanent ETB is under my control, Kadama will allow me to put another permanent, not creature, permanent, of lesser CMC onto the battlefield. So that's just a 2-for-1. That should all work very well. While I'm here, I'm going to talk quickly about lands of note. I've noticed that I don't mention the land package. I think that's all up to everybody else. You choose what you got. But I do have 2 cards that give me flash. That's an Alchemist's Refuge and the Emergence Zone. So that allows me once again just to react early. I've got other cards in there that allow me to do flash. Vidalcan Orrery, I think it is. Yeah. But they're there just in case I can't get that out. Minamo, School at Water's Edge. For 1 blue and I can tap it, I can untap a target legendary permanent. Guess who I'm untapping? Once again, it's Roon. And I got the Glasspool Shore, Glasspool Mimic in there. Dual-sided land. I can always pull that mimic back up, bounce it back down as a land, could I? I'm not sure. Either way, put it back down and make him copy someone else. And Balaged Sanctuary, the best dual land in the world. Comes in tapped, admittedly, but it's 1 green. The other side is Balaged Recovery. Return target card from your graveyard to your hand. There you go. That is just superb. I've got a couple of the bounce lands in there. You know, the Azorius Chancery, etc. I got them in there too, so I can always play these 2 guys as lands. Later on, I can put them in my hand. That is the land package. On to the draw package. First up, Guardian Project. A lot of creatures going to be coming in and out of the battlefield. This will get me a lot of cards. Mole Drifter. Once again, it's a creature. I can bounce it up and down. Get myself 2 cards every time I do. Cloud Blazer, very similar to Mole Drifter, except I also gain 2 life. And the Loyal Drake. Slap it on the battlefield, beginning of combat. If I control my commander, I draw a card. Following on from that, I've got Mentor of the Meek. A lot of these creatures are 2 mana, so I can always pay the 1 and draw a card. Rumour Gatherer requires a second creature in. As with white, it's that conditional draw, but I do get to scry 1 too. That's always handy. And Ether Channeler. This is a great card. Look at it. Creates a 1/1 white bird creature token with flying. I can return a target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Now remember, I've got those lands that give me flash, plus the Vidalcan Orrery, so I can play this guy defensively. Last bit of card draw here. Coiling Oracle. ETBs, look at the top card. If it's a land card, put it on the battlefield. Otherwise, put it in my hand. Yeah, I don't care which one of those 2 happens. It's all good. Eladamri's Call. It's an instant. That's what I love about this card. I can once again just do it defensively. Find something, somebody to answer a question. Obviously, once again, having flash will help so much. And Fabricate. Fabricate's in there to get the Vidalcan Orrery, or, surprise, surprise, a Panharmonicon, just to help out things and multiply the level of pain I'm going to give people. I think it's important to have pain multipliers. Next up, we got Interaction. First on the list, Aura Shards. If you're flickering stuff, you got to have Aura Shards. Look at this. Every time you bounce a creature, you're destroying an artifact or an enchantment. Druid of Purification. This is a new one I've only recently put in. When it ETBs, everybody chooses an artifact or enchantment I don't control and destroy them. Next is Rexage. When it ETBs, destroy an artifact or enchantment. And then Night of Autumn. Once again, artifacts or enchantments. There is a lot of that going on in this deck. Gain 4 life or put counters on it. I have other ways of getting rid of creatures. Further on, you'll see those in the cheese board. Plus, there's always Roon that can bounce them around. There's a lot of stuff going on here, so this little package right now is more about the artifacts and enchantments. And just to make everybody's life hard, Rishadan Rishadan Brigand. There we go. When they both ETB, each opponent sacks a permanent unless they pay 2 or 3, depending which one of them comes in. This is just awesome. So if they know I'm flickering this, they're going to be keeping some mana back. And that impedes them. That's the same as just killing lands, really. They're going to be holding mana back. First time they come in, they will be sacking a permanent because most of the people in my play group tap out every turn. A little bit of protection going on, bit of CEDH going on here actually. An offer you can't refuse, and then a counter spell. If you got blue, you got to have some kind of counter spell, mate. It's just what you got to do. Blue says no. That's what it does. And I just like saying no. I see these as more protection for Roon, but you know, the big board wipe comes down. It's really great to say no. Finally, Beast Within, just an instant. Destroy target permanent, that's all good. And Sunblast Angel. When it ETBs, destroy all tapped creatures. Once again, this puppy can just be flickered. It'll make him think twice about attacking. The great thing about this deck is I've got backup commanders in there. There are 10 cards that flicker creatures, even artifacts. And I've seen this deck win without the commander ever hitting the battlefield. So first up, I've got Far Traveller. Yeah, Roon needs to be on the battlefield for this, but what it does is this does the flicker, allowing Roon to hold off and flicker in someone else's turn. just react to one of their moves. Sword of Hearth and Home. This one is also ramp whenever it does the equipped creature, obviously. Deals damage to somebody. I flicker a creature, and I also find a basic land card, slap it on the battlefield. What more do you need? That is a must in any flicker deck. And Teleportation Circle, as I said earlier, with the artifacts, the signets, etc. This can always flicker one of those. This could flicker the Soul Ring, the end of a turn. There you go. I got the 2 mana to activate Roon in someone else's turn. I got 3 spells that also do the same thing. First up is Ephemerate, then Momentary Blink and Blur. Ephemerate has Rebound. So start of the next upkeep, I'll be exiling a card again. Wonderful. Momentary Blink has Flashback. Getting Desperate, look in your graveyard, pay the 4. And Blur, that'll flicker a creature, but also I get to draw a card. Nice replacement effect. That's all good. Bit of emergency card draw. If I do that with one of the card draw creatures, suddenly I'm drawing 3. Life's all good. Now we get on to the 4 creatures. That'll do the similar thing. Gilrain, Dunedain Protector. Pay 2, tap. Exile a target creature I control. I bounce it. You know the story here now. I can actually choose to hold on to it to the end of the turn and then return it with a vigilance counter and a lifelink on it. Lifelink counter or a lifelink counter. So, there's some value in there. Don't forget the Patriarch Seal from earlier, which untaps target legendaries. I could also untap this, ready for use on another turn. Emiel the Blessed, for 3, doesn't even have to tap. Exile another target creature I control. Then it returns. That's fabulous. Soul Herder, beginning my end step. Exile a creature, return it to the battlefield. Put a +1/+1 counter on Soul Herder whenever any creature is exiled from the battlefield. That's handy. That'll get big quite quickly. And finally, I got Displace a Kitten. So whenever I cast a non-creature spell, exile 1 and return it. I know this could be used in loads of combos. It's not. It's just in there because, well, it's cool. And it'll just do the job. If I play one of those flicker spells, blur or whatever, I'm flickering 2 things. I'm making stuff work. It's all just bouncing all over the shop. Now we're going to go on to some little, what I call force multipliers. We're just going to make things better. First up, I've got Shalai, Voice of Plenty. This is the only protection I've got. Me, planeswalkers, and other creatures I control have hexproof. I like Shalai. It's good. In an emergency, for 6, you can put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. Not really that worth doing or focusing on, given the fact you're flickering. But her and the 2 counter spells I've got, counterspell and offer you can't refuse, they're mainly there as my protection. Next up, Call for Unity. So whenever a permanent leaves the battlefield, well, one I controlled anyway, put a counter on it, and creatures I control get +1/+1 for each Unity counter on Call for Unity. So the more I flicker, the bigger Call for Unity gets, which means the bigger all my creatures get. That's just, what's the word? Horrible. Love it. Love it. As you know, I've got a Vidalcan Orrery in there. Try saying that after a couple of beers. Just had lunch. Yes, I can cast spells as though they had flash. Team that up with a Panharmonicon, which doubles any triggered ability. And Seedborn Muse, which now makes this all a Prophet of Krufix or something, doesn't it? Untap all permanents I control during each other player's untap step. Seedborn Muse, so important in this deck. Allows me to just constantly be flickering things using Roon, Dunedain, etc. Or sorry, Gilrain, Dunedain Protector. Just brilliant. So it's very control-y kind of deck. Okay, so now it's time for the cheese board. And it is a huge one tonight. There is just spades upon spades of cheese sitting on this board. We're going to start just with a little bit of recursion. Obviously, I have an Eternal Witness, a Timeless Witness in there. Anytime my creatures are destroyed, I can flicker these puppies, get them back into my hand, recast them, back to flickering. I also have a Diluvian Primordial in there. So whenever this ETBs, I can search my opponent's graveyards, find an instant or sorcery, and I may cast it without paying its mana cost. So that's great. It's just a way of using their creatures, their spells, rather than my own. All good. As you saw earlier, I had a lot of enchantment and artifact removal. I'm starting to get into some of my creature removal. First up, Sower of Temptation. ETBs gain control of target creature. Just run it up against something else to die, or just stomp along and destroy people left, right, and centre. Obviously, I'm going to back that up with Agent of Treachery. ETBs gain control of target permanent. The great thing about Treachery is I can then flicker him and they don't get the creature back. Whereas if I do that with Sower of Temptation, they do get the creature back. So the Sower would actually be looking more to destroy creatures. Basically, get a big one, cause some damage, and eventually just run it up against something with Death Touch. And finally, if I can't steal them, then I'll join them. I'll put a Clever Impersonator in there. This is great because it can come in as a copy of any other permanent on the battlefield. That means it could enter the battlefield and copy the Teleportation Circle, the Agent of Treachery, the Call for Unity. So many things it can copy. Next 3 cards. We're getting into a little bit of kind of control going on now. Glenalendra Archmage. Archmage. It's actually an Archangel, so it must be Archmage. Has flying. Pay blue, sack it, counter target non-creature spell. Has persist. So when it comes back, it's got a -1/-1 counter on it. Flicker it, get rid of your -1/-1 counter on it. It's ready to say no next turn. It's fabulous. Strong card in this deck. Lavinia of the 10th. Randomly has protection from red. But when it ETBs, I detain each non-land permanent my opponent's control with CMC costs 4 or less. And 4 or less includes tokens. Tokens are zeros, yeah? So until my next turn, they can't attack or block, and they can't even activate their abilities. Or use their activated abilities, should I say. That's fabulous. I can keep flickering that and just hold them down. Hold down the majority of their battlefield while using the previous cards to steal their big creatures. And finally, Stonehorn Dignitary. ETB's target opponent skips his or her next combat phase. So I'll tell you a quick story. I'm playing this. We're down to 3 runners. There's Andy on my left who's got Cranko, and he's cranking out goblins at this stage. I keep flickering the Stonehorn Dignitary. Andy's got like 96 goblins. Can't attack with any of them. I'll finish off Chad, who hopefully you'll meet in the next video, in front of me. And then I just keep flickering this, and I just fly over with one of my angels, I think it's Shalai or something, or the Cloud Blazer, and just keep hitting him for damage. Beautiful. Loved it. He didn't, but you know, that's life. I've also got, this is a new one, I've just put it in, Stuffy Doll. The idea here being that I'm going to slap it in. Obviously, the player I'd name would be someone who's doing something Voltron-y, or has a big, nasty, ground-based creature. There's a lot of those going around lately. Dinosaurs, etc. are big. And, you know, whenever it's dealt damage, it deals that much damage to the chosen player. By flickering it, I can change which player. So that's just a bit of protection. Thragtusk enters the battlefield. I gain 5 life. Also, when it leaves, i.e. when I flicker it, I create a green beast to protect me. It's awesome. Brutalizer Exarch. So there we go again. Arc and not Arch. Enters the battlefield. Choose one. Search my library for a creature card. Reveal it. Shuffle and put it on top. Or I can put a target non-creature permanent on the bottom of its owner's library. I love the fact it's the bottom of their library, not the top. That is awesome. So that's just removal and a tutor all in one. Great card. He'll work well. Got to have a bit of graveyard hate as well. Angel of Finality. ETBs exile all cards from target player's graveyard. Always carry some kind of graveyard hate. And that hates with a passion. Duplicant. Whenever it ETBs, I exile a target non-legendary, non-token, creature. And for as long as it's exiled, Duplicant has the power and toughness and creature types. Doesn't get their activated abilities or anything, but it gets rid of them. Duplicant can bounce and do it again, and the exiled creature doesn't come back. This is a permanent exiling. And finally, Mir. I don't know. How do you pronounce it? Tell me. Put MER if you think it's Mir and MIR if you think it's Mir. Comes from Mirrodin, don't I? So it must be Mirrodin. Must be Mir. When Mir Battlesphere enters a battlefield, put 4 1/1 Mir artifact creature tokens. When it attacks, I may tap those tokens, and it does X amount of damage equal to the number of tapped tokens, plus it gains that much oomph. This is great. Bring him in, flicker him. Now you've got 8 tokens. You could get 12 in one turn up and running easily, and then on your next turn, you're just going to swing in for horrible numbers plus do horrible damage. So that was the deck. Hope you liked it. It is a load of fun to play with. It's kind of has some level of control without being annoying. I have recently bought a Scholar of the Ages, which when it ETBs allows me to look up for an instant and a sorcery in my graveyard, put them into my hand. Not sure what card I'd remove. After doing this video, I probably think I got a bit too much targeted enchantment artifact removal. The Brutalizer Exarch was the last card to go in, and that's now made at 5, so might look at getting rid of one of those in return. Failing that, next month, going to do the interview with Chad, talk about the Urtet deck, what's in it, why, etc. Hope to see you then. In the meantime, don't drink and drive. You might spill some. See you then.